So this test is going to test the process DB results. And the first thing we need to do is we need to create the callback function. If you remember in the server.js file, we needed to pass that callback function that will return the results back to the sender. So whenever we call our cached FizzBuzz range, we need to pass in that callback. So this spy, CB function spy, is going to act in place of that callback. And then the next thing to look at are these two hooks. Within a describe, I can set up one of four hooks. I can set up a function to be called before all the tests, or to be called after all the tests, or the two that I've used here is this hook, this function to be called before each test is executed, and similarly after a test is finished, I call this function. These are just handy hooks that I can use to save having to set up this code around each of the tests. So before each test, I'm going to spy on the convert range to FizzBuzz. So this is the code we implemented in exercise 5 just to calculate the range, the FizzBuzz values for a range. Again, I don't want to test the functionality of this code because we did that already in tests created during exercise 5. I just need to make sure that I'm calling this module correctly. So this spy will allow me to do that. And then after the test, I need to make sure I restore that. Similarly, because we're going to do some tests on the callback function, I need to make sure that I reset that spy after each test. So now let's go back down to and look at the individual tests. So the first test is when the database has the valid results. So initially I set up a spy to look at the store calculated result function. And then I call process results. So this would be the callback function after I look at the database. So when I do the cloud and view, this is the callback function that gets passed in there. The false is if there was an error returned. DB results are the results returned from the database. Then I've got the data passed in, the start, the end, and then the callback function. My expectations, I expect the callback function to be called once with the test results. I expect my function to calculate the results never to be called, and I expect never to call the store results to the database. So that's how I test to see whether I've got a valid set of data back. If there's no results in the database, but there was no database error, again, I create this time it's a stub because I want to prevent the database actually being called. So I call my process DB results callback function. No error. I'm going to use DB results set 2 and the range is from 2 to 21, and this is my callback function. So here I expect the callback function to be called with the result set 2, and I expect that to be called once. I expect to have to call my calculate FizzBuzz function and I expect it to be asked for a range from 2 to 21. And again, that should only be called once. And then I would expect to call the store calculated results to be called once, again passing in that newly calculated result set. And then I just reset the stub here. And then if there is a database error, I expect that we're going to call the callback function once, because I still want the function to be called. I expect to have to calculate the results. But this time, because there was a database error, I don't want to call the store results. So they are the 3 tests that we created. And I've just realized that I missed one of the result sets out here, so let me just add that in before I run this. This is the database result when there are no rows returned, so there's no value found. So then again, if I run node modules bin mocha -w, you see that we do now pass all of the tests. So my cache fizz buzz, all those tests work correctly. And then what I can do is, just to finish this off, I can push this and you can see that pushing that caused the build to be initiated. And there we go, we've now deployed our new code. So again, I'm just going to copy this, launch this in the Chrome browser, and then the URL is cache fizzbuzz range, and we'll do 1 to 20, and we get the value back as expected. But if this time we go back and look at Cloudant, and we look at all the documents. Why isn't that showing up? You'll see we've got two documents. This is our design document, and if we look in here, you'll see that we have our range from 1 to 20, and then the results are there. So requesting that range added our entry into the database, and then when we request it again, this time we'll be getting it from the database. And that's the end of exercise 6a.